Yeah, I'm going to look up Bank of America's total balance sheet because again, I have to assume that Bank of America is much bigger than the $130 billion. But I'll do a quick Google search. But the other thing I wanted to talk about with Bank of America is their CEO came out yesterday and basically said the consumer has reached this point of pain. Uh, Consumers are pulling back. Mortgage rates are crazy high. Nobody's doing anything. Consumers are scared. We've been wondering at what rate would break the consumer. I think it's happening right now. What do you think?
Yes, yes. And you and I talked about this a little bit last week when we saw this consumer confidence as 86% of consumers think it's a bad time to buy a house, goes along with a lot of other consumer sentiment reports that are just getting worse and worse. And so, I think he's right. When you look at we've heard this drum beating for a year that the consumer is strong, the consumer is strong. Well, the reality is all this excess savings that consumers had has been drawn down, and consumer credit card debt is going through the roof. And so you've got, at the same time, consumers are finally really feeling squeezed by the ongoing inflation, by credit tightening. It's harder for them to get home equity loans. The rates are much, much higher. Most consumers, all their wealth is really in the equity of their own home. If they've had to move, they're paying higher rent, they're paying higher mortgage payments, higher credit card interest rates. It's up in the 22 to 24% range for many. And the consumers basically starting to not only, not have savings, but go into debt in order to cover just basic living expenses. And so that is finally, I think, coming home to roost. And it's been hidden a little bit in the data. Michael, maybe another, talking point for us today in the fact that there are such large wealth gaps in the United States that, yes, while there is still an increase in consumer spending, for example, if you look at, certain data, you've got a huge gap between the haves and the have-nots. And most of the wealth and the people that are still spending, I would argue, are most likely those of us like you and I who have a lot of expendable income, who have investments, and we can tolerate some of this. But the vast majority of people, Michael, they're living check to check to check, and they can't. They're crying uncle. The rates
Yeah.
can't go any higher, or it is going to cause them pain.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff going on in the economy. I first saw it in housing, kind of the bifurcated market, luxuries slowing down, entry level still on fire in lots of the countries. I think you're right. I think the consumer is just the same. I've read various reports talking about the top 20%, acting like nothing's happening, where the other 80% are retreating. And certainly if you get to the bottom 50, it is check to check. And it's getting tough out there, I think. So I just looked up Bank of America's balance sheet on Yahoo Finance just as a source. They're about $3.2 trillion balance sheet. So 130 billion, it's a lot, but it's 130 billion on a 3.2 balance sheet. So it's not SVB, right? SVB was
Right.
insolvent when they had to mark to market. So they're
Right.
obviously very,
I
very
think
big.